morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Friday, August 15th, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Friday, everyone. Here's a look at the ES in the daily time frame right now. The market is awaiting a series of pre-market economic data points here, including core retail sales, import-export prices, and much more. We have data points coming up after the RTH Open as well, including Michigan consumer expectations and Michigan consumer sentiment. So a ton of reports coming out here. The fact that we are pushing through two-day highs, we want to see how the market responds here after this early data. If we start pushing through the midpoints of the previous session here, we could go outside day down briefly here, perhaps turn it back up and stay within the range, perhaps a three-day range here with the current high and the current lows like this as we await next week's action here. This has been a generally bullish week here, especially 2 weeks running here of strength after the two-day pullback, but we're now above that pivot high into a very, very dangerous territory here for the bulls, because if there's a failure to hold that high, you start to rotate back into the range and perhaps across the range. So this is going to be very important how we finish the day today. Do we finish the day below 64.50? If so, that could suggest a drop into 6,200 in the week or two ahead. That would then provide an opportunity to bring it back up. If, on the other hand, we're finishing the day still above those highs, then the melt-up phase continues here. And as we've mentioned before, it is a continuation up until proven otherwise, and until we get that significant rejection or reaction. And again, not quite there at the moment, but soon. Does data lead to some sort of rejection up here? If so, we could be looking at some short-term intraday weakness, followed by a responsive move back up. Looking at the NQ, you'll see right here the NQ looking very similar here, holding above the previous pivot high here after a good 2-week bounce back. This is exactly what we were looking for on that Friday. Was the next Monday, if we can bounce back, we have a shot to not only bounce back to the midpoint of that impulse sell-off, but into those highs. So we've seen that continuation. Now look at this range right here. That is dicey. If we start to bust through that 23.8, again, like the ES, we can come back to the middle of the range and across to the bottom of the range. That could provide an opportunity to fade it back up if we did get to those lower levels. So again, watching to see how this thing responds. Two-day compression right now. So if we don't see any expansion at all, it's fade the edges of the two-day range until proven otherwise. Looking at crude oil, this one's down about 0.5% right now. Of course, this one has been trying to find a low. Did it finally find a low here over the last couple of days? It got as low as 61.94. You see the little bit of a push yesterday, and now trying to hold the midpoint of that session. Can it rise beyond 64? That's something we talked about before. If we can't get back above 64s, are we headed back to 58 or down to 58 and lower? If we can squeeze above 54, we open up the upside into about 70 to 72. With, of course, a midline target in the middle there as well. We have an expanding range down at these lows. That upper line there, and now this lower line here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-day compression down here. If we can get above 64s, there could be a 7-day rally here back toward value. Even if that were to occur, we may get smacked right back down. This market has been held down in a big way and has been smacked down after every rally. But watching to see how that 7-day range proceeds here. If we quantify that range, you'll see we're compressed at 53% of average, just 3 points of range over that 7-day period, and 7 points would be the expectation. So right now, that would be double what we're currently seeing right now. 7 points of range. That means if we bust through 64, 64.5 plus 7, that takes you to 71, 71.5. That takes you right to value. VPOC at 71.50. So there's 7 points of range built up into this 7-day compression. And if we can get a push beyond 64 or 64.5, that really opens up some upside for a short-term rally up ahead. We'll see if it can play out in that way. Looking at gold futures, gold currently modestly up right now, about 0.1%. It's had a very aggressive rotation to the downside. And one of the things we mentioned here recently was if it fails to hold 3,400 here, then we get back into the chop zone between 34 and 33. There's been a lot of chop in this area, and once it gets above it and fails to hold that level, you tend to make your move across the range. And we've seen this play out already. We're kind of holding below 3,400 here. Not the best directional conviction, but definitely a day one rejection and a downward flow. And any failure to reestablish acceptance back above that 3,400 opens up a return that can take us back to break even for the quarter. And can we even go a bit deeper? How deep can we go? It's my opinion here that a good flush out could be a great buying opportunity. So flushing out all the way back to say 3,150 to 3,200. Maybe 31 to 31.25. How deep can we go? That could provide a tremendous buying opportunity back up. For now, it could be a short-term weakness and chop until proven otherwise. All right, looking at the YM, this one's up about 0.5% right now, a bit more bullish than the ES and the NQ at the moment. This one's sitting above 45K. Just hit a new all-time high this morning at 45,371. This is very similar to what we talked about again on this Friday after the two-day meltdown post-Fed. Mentioned if we can snap back on a Monday, if we can push through the previous session's midpoint, if we can reach the midpoint of the impulse move, we may go back to a new high up here. And once we do, it could be a selling opportunity right back to this low. And if we do, it could be a buying opportunity right back up as this market continues to develop a range at these highs. Now, again, it all depends on what happens here, how the market receives data here pretty soon. But this market, again, expanding range has been in development here. And you have to watch this as very, very closely. If there's any reaction or rejection here, middle of the range very quickly, and we could flow across the range back up. Now, through 45.5, and you're really opening up some upside and the positive flow that we've been talking about here. But this is the danger zone if we do see some rejection. All right, looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up 1% after yesterday's monster outside day down. That was a big time day one rejection. The previous day prior to it was a huge up day and then a massive rejection on new all-time highs, 125K 200. So 125,200 is the new all-time high here for Bitcoin futures, and a big-time meltdown here, a little bit of a pullback right now. What does that mean moving forward? Is this the big bad ugly, or have we seen, you know, a corresponding rejection to that initial rejection here? How far does that lead to the downside? Again, like the ES, like the YM, NQ, even if we dropped, it could be a good buying opportunity back up. You really need to fail through about 110 to open up 100. And 100 to about 95 might be a tremendous opportunity for the next 50% return to the upside. And that would be a bounce off the 200-day moving average, off yearly VWAP. You can see the 200-day moving average has been highly bid along the way. If we did get a mature pullback toward 100K, 100 to 95, right in here, that could be a tremendous opportunity again as we flow toward 150K and beyond, perhaps in Q4 of this year. So how much of a pullback can we get? So again, watching to see up here, it's currently range bound, doesn't necessarily have to melt down, but if we start to push through 110, 112, how much lower can we go for a great buying opportunity in Q4? All right, looking at ETH now. This one's up 2.2% at the moment. A little bit of a bounce back. This one has not only completed a perfect double, It continued on for a perfect triple into 4,200. It has surpassed those expectations and come within striking distance of all-time highs. I thought we had a good shot to get all-time highs yesterday. By the time we got into the room, it just didn't quite get there. Almost there, probably within 25, 50 points of all-time highs. Do we get that level soon? We don't get this close and not usually get that level, but stranger things have happened. So the expectation here is we still likely grind out a new all-time high, but like the Bitcoin chart here, how much of a correction can we get, and how much upside can we get from that correction moving forward? Because this is enough juice through 4,000 to suggest that we could make a move not only to new all-time highs at about 4,900, but we could start working our way into 5,200 and 5,800 down the road. How much of a pullback do we need? Is the next double 3,000 to 6,000? Here's your 3,000 level there. That big break, can we get a pullback to about 3,000? There'd be a rising 200-day, a rising yearly VWAP, 3,000 to 6,000. Can we make that happen later this year? That depends on how big of a pullback we can get. So again, just setting it up right now. The big time moves have played out, but this thing's still trying to find its edge and now trying to plot the next big opportunity moving into Q4. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Happy Friday, everyone. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.